Hey, it's Storyworthy. Today on the show, the talented comedian Dave Hill talks about going to a prison in Mexico.
For selfish reasons, I thought, if Sing Sing was fun, Mexican prison's got to be like twice as fun. So I wrote to Bob and I was like, I would love to come down there. He's like, yeah, come down. Like, I think everything will be okay, but I can't guarantee it. But things have been pretty peaceful lately. And everyone has told about this was like, you're insane. Don't go. Like, you're going to get murdered. And then my brother was like, go, you'll have the time of your life. And if you get murdered, you won't care because you'll be dead. And I was like, well, that makes total sense. So I went down there.
Today on the show, comedian and musician Dave Hill talks about going to a prison in Mexico. Stay close.
Hey, it's Dave Hill, and you're listening to Storyworthy.
Welcome to Storyworthy. My name is Christine Blackburn, and I'm coming to you from Los Angeles, California. If you're a longtime fan of the show of almost 14 years, or you're a brand new listener, welcome to Storyworthy. I hope you guys enjoyed the show last week with author Ivor Davis. He was a journalist for the Beatles. He actually ended up being George Harrison's ghostwriter. And he's a fascinating man. Probably one of the only people still alive from that time who was with the Beatles, traveling with the Beatles. And anyway, Ivor Davis is a fabulous man and a really interesting person. So if you like the Beatles or you know somebody who's into that stuff, you let them know to listen to Storyworthy from last week with Ivor Davis. But not today. Stick with me now, because today I'm here with another incredibly talented person. He's written books. He's written on TV shows. He is a musician. And here's something that I just am blown away by, Dave. And I know you must hear this a lot, but your band, Valley Lodge, you guys wrote the theme song for John Oliver and his show last week tonight.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that show that, it starts off really big. Yep. And then it just goes. And then the name of the song is Go.
Yeah. I wrote it.
You wrote it?
I wrote it. Not to take any credit away from the other guys.
No, I didn't know that.
But I wrote it.
Cool.
No, but I wasn't saying I wrote it like, I wrote it. But I did write it. But I wrote it like 4 a.m. Just woke up in the middle of the night and hummed it into my phone.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, I think I still have it.
Even the very first part that I just kind of did.
Yeah. I woke up. We had just toured Japan, and I got back and I was like crazy jet lagged, and I just had that whole thing in my head. And right before the tour, I had downloaded this like phone app 4-track thing that my friend and bandmate John Kimbrough said was awesome, and I got it, and then I just recorded it into my phone. And like, had I not done that, I'm sure I would have forgotten it, and and then never would have written that song, which changed my life in very nice ways. So.
Wow. I mean, it changed your life.
Well, just in that, like, that song, that show is on a lot, and made people aware of our music that maybe wouldn't have been otherwise. And
how did the John Oliver show find it?
I knew John through comedy, but probably more. I never really heard like the actual like office conversation of it, but Liz Stanton, who is the showrunner, I've been friends with her since like over 20 years. And I actually did the music. I did the music for a show called Reverb on HBO a long time, around like 2000 or something. And so I knew Liz from that show. And then, one day, however many years ago, she just called and said, we want to use one of your songs for the John Oliver show. And I was like, you should use the song Go. she said, "Oh yeah, that's the one we want to use." Because I kind of was like, "Oh, this song." It's funny. I'm sorry for going off on this tangent about that song, but
No, it's super interesting.
there was another show. This show, these people had a show. They did a podcast and they ended up getting a TV show, and they had used one of our songs for their podcast. So when I saw they got a TV show, I was like, "Oh, you should use one of our songs." And I was like, "You should use this song, Go." And they were like, "No, we want to use this song by some famous artist I I'd never heard of." And, but which is only because I'm completely out of touch with what's popular in the world. I just live in my own universe, but, they ended up not using it. And it's one of those, like, everything happens for a reason type things. Cause in retrospect, so good that they didn't use it, because had they used it, probably the John Oliver show would not have, and none of that would have happened. So it was one of those reminders.
Let me ask you. So Liz would have heard Go from Valley Lodge's an album or Spotify, or how did Liz hear that song? Yeah,
we had just put the album out. We're on a label now. We had been on a label, and then we're off label, and then we had just self-released that album digitally, and now we're on the label, TP Records. But that one, I just uploaded it, and it was out, and it was the first song on the record. And so I'm imagining they were probably at the John Oliver show and going like, "Oh, we need a theme song, and who do we know who has a band?" And then and then she was like, "Oh, let's see what Dave's up to," or whatever. I'm guessing. I really don't know.
No, that's how it happens. Of course.
I'm guessing it was something along those lines. I wish.
Yeah, people are just sitting around at a table and talking.
Yeah. I wish like 4 other big TV shows had songs that I had written as the theme song. I've been trying to put that into the universe ever since, you know.
Yeah. Hey, maybe you should do a song, something like dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
Is that anything?
Well, I think that's strong. I think that's strong. I don't even know. Is that still the theme song to The Tonight Show, the Jimmy Fallon version? I have no idea.
Gosh, that's a great question. I'm honestly not.
Like most people in the modern, well, Grandpa's too old to stay up that late, so I've never seen the show really.
You're not a grandfather.
No, I know, but I can't. I never see anything that's on past like 10 o'clock if it's live.
I know.
Because I'm asleep. I hear you. I just can't do it. I can't. I fall asleep. So I've seen the show. Just I've only seen it like online and stuff.
Right. Of course. Your topic today is going to a Mexican prison, which, of course, I'm dying to hear the story. I know it's going to be great. But before we get to that, I just want to, because I have you here, I just want to ask you about being in the band Valley Lodge. Mm-hmm. You know, you guys were a rock band. You've toured.
We still are. We're still a band.
Right. You're out there. You tour. But let me ask you something, because you personally have so much else going on. You're such a writer. You know, you've written all these books and you're constantly putting stuff out there. Do you take the rejection from music, like whether you get the label, don't get the label or whatever? Do you take it as hard as the other band members?
No, I mean, I don't really know. Like, I think the reason Valley Lodge is, I mean, we've been a band for like 20 years now, and with, you know, lineup change, you know, because I formed the band with my buddy John Kimbrough, who was in a great band called Walt Mink, and then he moved to LA, and so he hasn't really been a part of. He was on the first 2 records. The first record we did together, which I think is the best record we made, probably. Mm-hmm. But even though they're all amazing, except for the second one, which I believe to be a clunker, but. No, I think part of the reason I've been able to have so much fun with it and been lucky enough to, is I just have fun and I don't care at all about success with the band. I mean, I do have, every time we make a record, I'm like, oh, maybe this is the one that, you know, sometimes I have those moments where like, I'm like, what if like a cool music website wrote about our music? That would be cool. Because it happens very infrequently, you know, sometimes. But so I do have those moments. But in general, I truly don't care what anyone thinks about our band, or I just do it like even when we started the band, my thinking was, you know, on the Flintstones, there was like, you know, in the later era of the Flintstones, when they had like the Martian guy, and then they had like different things going on. One episode, they had this band, the Way Outs, which was like kind of a British invasion kind of band. And so with Valley Lodge, I was like, I just want to be the Way Outs. I want to be this like fictional band that exists just in my record collection that combines all the things that I'm into. I mean, it doesn't combine all the music that I'm into, but it combines, you know, many things that I'm into. And I just think of it like that. And, I mean, I try to be that way with everything that I do, is really like kind of be the audience for what I'm doing. And as long as I'm like making a living at it, which is not even that, I don't think is important, but it's important to me in that I just am horrible at doing anything other than exactly what I want to do. So I'm lucky enough to have been able to do that for a long time. But I just think not to be like all whatever, but I think with any art form, music, comedy, writing, you have to, if you're doing it fully for what you want to do and don't care about anyone else, that's like the best way to do it. And so anyway, that's my really long answer to
No, I totally agree. And I think you're fortunate that you have many different passions and kind of like eggs in different baskets, as it were.
Yeah. So it's like, if one thing is, because the Valley Lodge, like we make a record and then I kind of forget about it. But then I'm like, lately I've been like, what if we just made another record right away? Maybe we should do that. I don't know. Who knows? Just because I'm getting older and I'm like, I'm probably... Who knows how much, I don't know. Maybe I might stop rocking. Probably not. I'll probably rock forever. I'll probably just keep rocking.
You are an artist through and through, and you actually play with different bands, not just Valley Lodge.
Yeah.
And I know that you're playing down in Athens, the entire REM album Murmur, which is like a complete classic album.
Yeah, totally.
From front to back, with Michael Shannon and Jason Narducci.
Yeah, well, I'm just opening that tour, but so I'll just do my own thing of.
I see.
I'm going to do comedy but I'll play music most of the set. Like that's pretty much on my own shows. Like when I'm doing longer sets or touring, I usually get a bass player and drummer, like kind of Chuck Berry style. And where I just kind of get them in that city and we go, but except on like, with the Tenacious D tour that I just did, and I'm going to open for them again in Ireland and the UK. Scott and John from Tenacious D's band.
Amazing.
They play with me every night and they're total gods. And
amazing. Yeah. I was going to mention that. I know you've been in England and Scotland and touring with those guys. Is that a blast or what?
Oh yeah. I mean, touring with Tenacious D and opening for them is like one of the funnest, if not the funnest thing ever in my life. Like,
yeah,
I just saw those guys in LA and I was saying to them, most of the time I really dread performing. Like anytime I have a show, there's a part of me that's like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? I have to walk out and be in front of people is a horrible idea.
Because you're the only one.
Yeah. And
when you're with a band or with other people, then you get more comfortable. Like, I don't have to handle this alone. Is that
No. I still feel that way. Like with a band, like if it's like Valley Lodge or, my other band Painted Doll, like that in that setting, I do feel that way. Like, I'm with other people and we're kind of a gang or whatever. But with the comedy shows, even if I have a bass player and drummer with me, I don't feel like, I feel like still very much, oh shit, I got to go out there on my own. And like they're coming out, but like it's kind of on me to tell the jokes and stories and things. And so because I'm really like, just want to play with my dog mostly. The idea of going on stage is has always been horrifying. But
but that's part of where you probably draw your energy. I mean, you've got these nerves, and then you meet it in the place you have to, because your preparedness is taking over this opportunity.
Yeah, totally. Like my girlfriend reminds me, she's like, "You're gonna have fun. It's gonna be good." Like, because a lot of times I make her life hell by just sharing my anxiety with her, and but. But on the Tenacious D tour, I realized sort of after the tour, I was like, oh, I wasn't anxious on that tour because I was just having so much fun. And then every night you go out and there's like 10,000 people that are totally up for good times. And the tour we're going to do in May, it's bigger. It's like 20,000 a lot of the nights. So
really?
It's, because they're massive in the States, but they're even bigger in Europe. So it's going to be...
Dave, what does that feel like, really, stepping out onto that stage? Do you even see the audience, or are you just kind of in your head?
Yeah, you can't really. I mean, I kind of... Because my first band, like in my 20s, we would play these radio fests where it'd be like 25,000 people. And I realized... On the one hand, like, my inner teenager goes like, well, yeah, of course, there's 25,000 people watching me. That's what the plan was all along, even though, I'm opening or I'm playing on a festival or whatever. But so there's that aspect of it where I think the nicest thing I heard, at the Tenacious D tour, and I can't remember who said this to me, but they said, it's like watching a teenager pretend to perform for 10,000 people, but you're actually doing it. And I was like, oh, that's not what I'm doing consciously, but that's actually what I'm doing.
That is so sweet, and it's fresh and it's innocent. I love all of that. Let me ask you something. Are you also a fan of like Bare Naked Ladies, the Pixies, the Pogues, those guys?
Yeah, absolutely. All those bands. And I actually, not to name drop, but I know someone in all those bands.
No shit. Really?
I do. I just did a camp with like a Rhett Miller's Songwriting is Magic camp with Charles Thompson, Frank Black, whom I just met on that camp. But I was like a instructor, though those guys did the heavy lifting. I mostly was like sort of the jester instructor, probably.
I see those on Facebook, Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, and I just would do anything to go to one of those, because I play piano and guitar a little bit of piano. You got to come. I'm doing one with Stephen Page, formerly of Bare Naked Ladies. Dave, you know how much those cost?
I actually don't know, because I've never looked.
It's about $2,000.
Oh, I didn't know, because
they're very expensive, because you're hanging out with rock stars like Nancy Wilson will be out here in LA doing a rock camp. Like, holy shit, you could go sit in with Melissa Etheridge, and if you want to pay $1,500.
Yeah, that's a lot. Well, I mean,
that's why it's called Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. It's almost like Make-A-Wish.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I didn't know what these things cost, because I've only attended them as a quote unquote instructor. And I'm an instructor. I unteach things, but I will say, like, I had so much fun at Rhett Miller's camp that I'm like, whatever it costs, it was totally worth it for the I was paid to be there, which is great for me. But it's
such an experience.
But it was
right?
the vibes were so good. I had so much fun, and it was so awesome meeting everybody and meeting so many like cool, talented people. Both the people attending, and then I'd never met Charles Thompson before, and he was
just hearing you talk about it and thinking about it, if I ever got to go to Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, I think I would cry the whole time.
Yeah.
Because I would just be so happy
It's
to be there.
super good vibes. And like you have like, I'm doing this one. Stephen Page is doing one this summer. That's Stephen, Chris Murphy from Sloan, Mo Berg from The Pursuit of Happiness, Craig Northey from The Odds, Kevin Page, or maybe it's Stephen's son, but I'm not sure. Oh wait, I'm screwing. I'm mixing names. This is where the challenge of naming all the people, because then I screw it up.
No, it's okay.
But Bobcat Goldthwait is going to be there. It's going to be so fun, and I'm going to be there, and I'm super psyched. And yeah, like the Rhett one, I made a point of getting out of there because I was like, oh, you don't want to be the last one at summer camp. So I got out of there while there was still people around, because I was like, I'll get too sad if I'm here alone.
I
waiting for my dad to pick me up.
I had Bobcat on Storyworthy before, and he told a story about getting attacked by the Juggalos because he had to perform for the Juggalos in the middle of the night.
Oh,
and then
that's
he was on a
amazing.
golf cart and they were chasing him, throwing grape soda at his head. So you can ask him about that.
That's amazing. Well, he's one of my favorite comedians of all time, and also one of the nicest guys in the world.
Absolutely.
But it seems like the Juggalos, if they're throwing grape soda on you, that's a compliment, no?
I know he took it that way, but there could still be a head injury.
Yeah, there is that.
Listen, we got to move on because I could talk to you forever. Your story topic today is going to a Mexican prison, which I can only imagine, and I'm anxious to hear it. But before we get to that, I do want to tell everybody, of course, you are a comedian and a writer and a musician. You're originally from Cleveland. I believe they call it the Mistake on the Lake. Is that true?
Well, people have called it that, but no, that's I think of it as the Paris of Northeast Ohio. It's truly.
I'm from Pittsburgh, so you're killing me. Too funny.
Oh, so I mean, it's basically Pittsburgh 2 hours away.
It's the same thing.
Very, very similar. Rust Belt, overcast. Good times.
You have written for the New York Times, Salon, Huffington Post, New York Daily News, Guitar World. That must be fun for you. And you're a regular contributor to This American Life, which is very cool. I wanted to move on and talk about just a little bit about your books. You've got 4 books. And the way I'm figuring this in my head, you're writing a book about every 3 years.
I think so. By accidentally. Yes.
In 2013, you came out with Tasteful Nudes, which was a collection of essays.
I think that was 2012, but I could be wrong.
No, it was 13. No, I don't know.
Oh, it might be. I don't know. I think the paperback came out in 2013.
In 2016.
But I could be wrong. What do I know?
In 2016, you came out with Dave Hill Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And then in 2019, Parking the Moose, an American's epic quest to uncover your incredible Canadian roots. So what is that? Are you from Canada?
My grandfather was from Canada, and I learned in the research of the book, I thought that my great-grandfather, my grandmother's dad, so not related to the Canadian grandfather, I thought my whole life that he was from Ireland, but then in talking to one relative for 2 seconds, learned that he was also Canadian. So the big M. Night Shyamalan ending of the book, I don't think this is a big spoiler, but the premise of the book is that I'm quarter Canadian. And then at the end, you learn I've been 3/8 Canadian the entire time. Yeah.
You are so damn funny. All right. And then last year, 2023, you put out The Awesome Game, one man's incredible globe-crushing hockey odyssey. So you're telling me, on top of everything we've already talked about, you play ice hockey.
Yeah, I played until my sophomore year in college. And then we were like 2 games into the season and we were playing, Hofstra or something. I went to Fordham University in the Bronx. And all my friends were at a Red Hot Chili Peppers, Faith No More, Royal Crescent Mob concert. And I was like, I want to be at that concert. I don't want to be playing this game right now. And I quit like the following Monday because I realized I lost my fighting spirit or whatever. But
hockey is an incredibly athletic sport, ice hockey.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, you can't see their bodies, but if you can picture, which I often do, underneath the uniform.
Sure, as well you should.
These guys, I mean, well, that one of the reasons why I don't like basketball, but if I were to say I like basketball, it'd be because you could see the athletes. Like you can actually see their bodies and how that's all working together. But hockey players, they crash into each other like small Toyotas. But who cares? They're all padded up.
Yeah, well, it still hurts. I mean, it hurts a lot. Why don't you just be
in a big sumo suit?
No, it hurts. All of that hurts a lot, what you're describing. You don't really...
I know.
Yeah, it's very painful.
I believe you. You have had fabulous reviews on all these books from very impressive people like Malcolm Gladwell, Jeanine Garofalo, Jim Gaffigan, Tom Papa, Sandra Bernhard, Chris Elliott, who I love that guy.
Me too.
And from The Atlantic. So you've had these really exciting reviews. When you get those reviews, of course, it makes you feel good. But what else?
I think... I tend to question all of them. I think, oh, come on. But I mean, most of the people you mentioned, though, are friends that are being very nice to write nice blurbs for me, which is, kind of the case. That's this. I mean, I think I always Malcolm Gladwell is a friend of mine, and I think he read this one because he said some things that made it seem like he read it. But so I'm grateful for that. But
well, you are, you have a wonderful tribe around you, as it were. I mean, you've definitely found your place in this world as an artist, and you're in fact able to live in New York City, make some money, and contribute. So it's kind of beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I always forget.
You guys can.
I was going to say it sounds like you're describing someone else, because I think of myself as this like drifter, basically.
Yeah, but look, you got a huge body of work, and it's just very exciting and impressive. And I'm certainly glad you're here today.
Oh, thank you.
You guys can find out a lot more about Dave over at his website, davehillonline.com. Wherever you are, you guys, put your hands together for the very talented Dave Hill.
Okay, so here's the story. A while, I think maybe it was 2009, I had this idea to do, I was just out with friends and kind of joking around about the idea of performing in a prison. And so my friends are like, oh, they would kill you, and this is, not to diminish anyone else, but this is before, Jeff Ross did his thing in a jail, and Monique, the comedian, did something in a prison. But so this is before
Johnny Cash, of
course. But I didn't know, other than Moms Mabley, who did Sing Sing every Christmas Eve for a long time. I'd never heard of any comedian doing that, and so I called Sing Sing because I figured if I was going to do it, if I was going to perform in a prison, I would go, to just full on maximum security sort of thing. And so I booked a show there. I did it. And it was an amazing experience. I had one of the best. Tenacious D tour, first time performing at Sing Sing. Definitely both highlights of my life. Second time I performed at Sing Sing was not as fun, just because it was like the second time, So anyway, so I had such an amazing experience performing at Sing Sing that my anxiety went away for 6 months. And so then I was reading the New York Times magazine, and my friend Bob Coogan, who worked at Fordham University when I went there was a story on him that it turned out he is from Brooklyn, but went to Mexico, was volunteering, and then ended up becoming a priest and ended up being the chaplain at a men's prison in northern Mexico, in Saltillo, Mexico, where the cartel murdered the warden and then basically took over the prison and the Mexican government would just kind of be on the outside, just being like, let us know if you need anything. And and my friend Bob was still the priest. I guess he talked to the bishop and was like, can I be transferred? And the bishop's like, no, you should stay. So I read this story. It was insane. And then I hadn't talked to Bob in a long time, but I connected with him on Facebook, and I was like, this is amazing. Can I come down there? Because I mean, for selfish reasons, I thought, if Sing Sing was fun, Mexican prison's got to be like twice as fun. So
where is Sing Sing, by the way?
Sing Sing is in Ossining, New York, just north of New York by about 30 miles.
Why do I know Sing Sing? Why do we know that?
It's like a very not that
notorious.
It's infamous. It's it's on that and like San Quentin and Leavenworth, Folsom. Basically, it's like one of the most infamous prisons. The when they say the big house, that saying comes from, because Sing Sing was called the big house, or is called the big house. When they say they're going to send you up the river, that refers to Sing Sing going up the Hudson River.
That's very interesting.
So it's like, it's probably the most infamous East Coast prison. And anyway, so I wrote to Bob and I was like, I would love to come down there. And my thinking was that, if the New York Times writer was okay, then I would probably be okay. And so he's like, yeah, come down. Like, I think everything will be okay, but I can't guarantee it. But things have been pretty peaceful lately. And everyone has told about this was like, you're insane. Don't go. Like, you're going to get murdered. And then my brother was like, go, you'll have the time of your life. And if you get murdered, you won't care because you'll be dead. And I was like, well, that makes total sense. So I went down there, and my friend Bob, he's a priest, but he doesn't live in the rectory because in Mexico, when you get out of prison, they don't say like, oh, you're going to get out in like 2 months or a year or whatever. They just like, a lot of times they just tap you on the shoulder and be like, get your stuff, you're free. So a lot of these inmates, they're maybe nowhere near their friends and family. They just get, sprung onto the street. So he would take in a lot of these guys into his apartment. So I went down there, and by the time I went down, this was like a few weeks after we started talking. He's like, oh, there's one guy still with me. He's a murderer, rapist, but he's a really nice guy. And so I go down there. They pick me up at the airport. We go to this restaurant. We're eating, and this young guy that at dinner was like so, delightful guy. And he goes to the bathroom. I'm like, Bob, like, he's a really nice guy, but like, how does a murderer rapist just get out? And he's like, oh, I was just kidding. He was just in breaking and entering. So I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, small detail. Anyway, so we go, I'll try to speed this story up. But so we're going to the prison. I don't speak any Spanish. Like, I can order a beer, and Bob's like, you gotta play guitar in the prison, like, because you really need these guys to like you. Like, if they don't like you, it's going to be really bad. So we go to the prison on like a Saturday, and I only had permission to go in on the Sunday. So he was bringing pizzas to this guy for his birthday, and he leaves me like waiting in front of the prison for like 20 minutes, and like about 30, 50 yards ahead of me, there's like this highway, and there's all these cars speeding by. There's like government, the military or whatever, police or whatever, like standing in the back of pickup trucks with like rifles, and just cruising by. It's insane. For a guy from Cleveland, it seems pretty insane. And then there's like guards going around the prison, and they're all wearing bulletproof vests. So Bob finally comes out, and I just been like sitting there. There's like wild dogs running around and stuff. And I'm like, Bob, why do the guards on the outside of the prison have bulletproof vests? And he's like, oh, he's that highway over there. A lot of times cars drive by and shoot people in front of the prison. And I was like, well, Bob, I've been sitting in front of the prison for the past 20 minutes. Like, Yeah,
Why
and
didn't you
he's
tell
like,
me this?
well, I don't know. It's Saturday. It's not like that's not like a big day for that sort of thing. So I'm just like, what? Like, I'm like, aren't you worried you're going to get killed down here? And he says, when you wake up in the morning and it's sunny outside, do you worry that it's going to rain later? I'm like, no. He's like, well, that's how I feel about life. And I'm like, wow, that is
Wow.
amazing. Anyways, Bob is one of the greatest guys on earth.
Well, he's a chaplain, so he has to be like super giving and stuff, right?
Yeah, and he is. I mean, he's a
Empathetic.
remarkable person. So the next day we go to the prison and we go in, and he's saying mass, and so I remember what he said, that I better play guitar. So fortunately, as I learned very quickly, Mexican prisons are lousy with guitars. They're everywhere. There's just like
Wow.
nylon string guitars that's like lying around. So we go in, he's saying mass, and there's like a guitar choir. So I grab a guitar and I just join the choir, and I just kind of like improvised over what they were playing. And then after mass, Bob disappears to say confession. And then there's all these guys. I don't speak any Spanish, so I just start ripping solos as hard as I can. And they're like playing chords, and I'm just like honestly ripping solos for like 45 minutes straight.
Oh my God. Like is it an electric guitar? Or is it steel string acoustic?
Like nylon string acoustic, yeah.
Oh my God. It's like a flamenco guitar.
Yeah, so I'm just playing. I use a quarter for a pick, and I'm just like playing as fast as I can. Because I learned like one thing: if you have a bunch of dudes, if you just rip solos, everything's probably going to be all right. I learned this in college. It's a way to get out of trouble. If there's a bunch of guys, sitting around, if you just start playing solos, everyone will be like, okay, Dave's in charge. So I was like, I'll just play solos and I'll get out of here in one piece. It's going to be fine. So it totally worked. When we were leaving, Bob's like, those guys really like you. This went really well. So anyway, so we go, and like, so this guy's living at his apartment, and then another friend had been hanging out with us. So he comes over, and that night we're like hanging out, drinking beers, and the former inmate gets a phone call, and he comes back and he's like freaking out in Spanish. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, oh, this other guy that used to live here, this other former inmate, had been living with him and apparently been bringing like prostitutes home and like just like having parties. But then he stole a bunch of money from Bob. So Bob kicked him out for stealing. And like the prostitutes and all that was not a big, or sex worker. Sorry, I'm not using the right lingo. They were not the problem. It was the stealing.
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah. In other words, the crime from prison isn't the problem. It's this petty theft.
Yeah, like because he's like, oh, I can't trust, it just wasn't cool.
It's personal.
So, and so he, asked him to leave. And then I guess with the money that he stole, he bought beer for himself and this other guy that was still living there. And he calls the guy and he's like, hey, you need to pay me back the money from the beer, or I'm going to come over there and murder everybody. And I'm going to trash the apartment, and I'm going to steal Bob's car. All which seemed like, who cares about the apartment and the car after you've murdered it? It's like, why are you even mentioning that stuff? Because the murder seems to be the thing that jumps out at me. But so, and I'm like, well, how much money is it? And he's like, 300 pesos. I'm like, well, how much is that? It's like $25. I was like, well, is he going to pay him? He's like, no. And he's like, if he pays him, that'll just show him that this tactic works, and he'll just keep doing it. So I'm like, let me get it. I'm on vacation. Let me get it. I'll get it. Let me spring for the whatever that is, extortion or whatever. And so they're like, no, you're not going to pay him. And like, cause then he's just going to do it again. And so I'm like, please let me pay the $25. I'm staying, so, and then I don't know, I guess cause I was drinking, I was like, well, if you don't have $25, like you can't afford a gun. And then Bob's like, well, he's not going to use a gun. This is Mexico. He'll use a machete.
Oh.
And then I was like, and I was staying in Bob's room. He gave me his room and he was staying in the other room. So I was like, I'm staying in Bob's room. He's going to come and kill me first. This is like, oh, this whole vacation's ruined, you know? And so, anyway, so so we just go to bed because I'm like, okay, I guess we're just going to see what happens.
Did you lock the doors?
Yeah, we locked the doors. But then like Bob went to bed and the other guys wanted to go get like beer and cigarettes. And like, I wasn't going to go, but then they're like, do you really want to stay here alone in the living room? I'm like, no, I'm coming with you guys. So we go to the store and like every car that passes, I'm like, this is great. We're going to get murdered now. Anyway, so we go to sleep, come home, go to sleep. And, all night, like it was really hot, but I locked my window because I was like, at least, you know, maybe I'll have to break the window to kill me first. Anyway, so, so he didn't show up. The whole next day, I'm like waiting for this guy to show up and kill us, or like we're running around town. I'm like, he's going to kill us on our errands and stuff. And then, long and short of it, clearly I was not murdered, but, that when we got home, the guy was like, oh, like the guy who wanted the money came to my work and demanded the money. And he had this guy with him who was called the Beef in Spanish, whatever that is. I can't remember the Spanish word for beef, but
wait. When you get a taco, if you get a taco, you know, you get the
Bisteca, maybe the Bisteca. No, that's the steak. But I don't know, like, so he paid him the money, like he went and borrowed the money from his boss. And so I was like, well, why did he pay him? You said that he shouldn't pay him and that it wasn't like a real threat. And he talks to the guy and he's like, what did he say? And he's like, oh, he said he was in prison with him and he knows that guy and that he definitely would have killed all of us tonight if I didn't give him the money. So, anyway, so that's what happened. And, I ended up on the plus side. I'll say, like, it was kind of unpleasant thinking for like a 24-hour period that we were going to be murdered. And by the end of it, we had dinner and the guy who had threatened to murder calls.
Came over.
No, he calls on the phone and they like talk on the phone. My friend Bob is talking to this guy and he's like, okay, see you later. And so I had this civil conversation with this guy that had just threatened to murder him. And but on the plus side, I'll say that at thinking that someone is going to murder you all day long, but being in the presence with someone else who isn't that concerned about it sort of balances it out a bit.
Yeah.
But it made me like, I felt like really present all day long because I wasn't thinking about anything else other than not getting murdered right then and there. So it was like a positive thing.
You really puts you in the moment, doesn't it?
It did, because I was like, this is fun. We're having a nice lunch, but I'm slightly concerned someone's going to murder us.
Could be the last meal.
Yeah, exactly.
Have
so
what
oh my
you
gosh,
want.
these tacos are so good.
Carne asada.
Yeah. So, but then on the negative side, I'll say like, my takeaway from the entire trip, I wasn't like as exhilarated as I was having done the show at Sing Sing, which did not involve death threats or anything.
Right.
Like I came back from Mexico just kind of like, okay.
How long were you there in total?
Maybe like 6 days, maybe 5 or 6 days, something like that.
And when you go into a prison, when you check in, as it were, you give them a driver's license. Yeah.
I can't remember. I have the letter. Protocol? He had to get a letter from the authorities or whatever saying it was okay for me to go in. I have it framed in my apartment. I have that.
Good.
I have that, and I have the flyer from when I did the show at Sing Sing, but which are two of my favorite things I have.
By the way, where did they put those flyers up in Sing Sing? Like cafeteria, exercise yard, corridor?
Yeah, I guess so. And it's an amazing flyer because there's like a ridiculous picture of me. There's like blurbs about me. It looks like a flyer for a show, but then in the corner it says must have 1 year clean disciplinary to attend. That's the only difference.
Yeah. It was like happy fun times. And then it's like, by the way, leave your weapons in the cell.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they just hung them around.
Okay, two more questions. When you heard the murder threat, the threat of murder, it was clear. Mm-hmm. It was possibility. Did any part of you say, I'm out of here, I'm going to the airport?
No, because I don't know. That just seemed like... No, I don't know. It just didn't occur to me to do that because, I don't know. You want to pay the change fees and all that for the flight. So,
and the other question is, how are your parents doing, and are they still in Cleveland?
My mom is dead, but so I think she's doing great. In the way that I believe in,
peace
and energy and
right.
Different realms and all of that. My dad is doing great. He's alive. And he is 91 and he lives in Cleveland. And I just saw him, like last week or so, maybe the week before.
That's so wonderful. Do you tell him when you take these somewhat risky trips?
No, I don't. No, I'll tell him afterward. Yeah. I would, I guess. I would be like, oh, I'm going to Mexico. I usually call him. Yeah. I usually call him wherever I am, especially in other countries, because he lived in Japan for a little while in the army, and he's been to Canada, but maybe Pittsburgh, but he hasn't traveled that much outside of the country. So I always call him because he's like, oh, I always wanted to be like a touring jazz musician. So when you call me from Norway or wherever, I kind of get like to live vicariously. So I always call him.
Is sweet.
And I'm in like another country. So I'm sure I called him when I was down there, but I probably didn't tell him the murder thing.
Yeah. And has he read all your books?
I don't know. I think, well, yeah, he's the first one. I know for a fact he said there was too much profanity in it. So I feel bad about that. And I've since tried to make every book have less profanity. That's the last thing I do with every book is do a search for profanity and decide whether it's absolutely necessary.
Right. Because some of it is absolutely necessary.
I would agree with that.
It's just, that's why we have the language. I mean,
exactly. The second book, he wrote me a really nice note that I'm going to frame and put in the house whenever I get one of those. And the third book, he told me he didn't finish, Parking the Moose, the Canada book, which he's doing better. Like, I have one sister who didn't realize when my new book, The Awesome Game, One Man's Incredible Globe-Crushing Hockey Odyssey, when that was about to come out, one of my sisters said, wow, your third book. I said, it's the fourth book. And she's like, what was the third one? And I told her, and she was like, I missed that one. I don't know how I missed that one.
You have 4 sisters, right?
3 sisters and a brother.
3 sisters and a brother. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My family is 5 girls and 1 boy. Mm-hmm. Big families. Were you guys raised Catholic?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm guessing you were as well.
Of course. Hey, I know my tri-state area. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was weird when people had less than 4 kids. Mm-hmm.
I know.
If a family had 3, I was like, they're weird.
I remember feeling sorry for some other kids because they didn't have as many people to play with.
Yeah.
But I also, like, I couldn't have a birthday party with friends. Like, I couldn't do anything with friends. I couldn't take any lessons. In other words, we didn't have any money. So when there's so many
Yeah.
kids, you can't just have somebody over for dinner. You can't do
No, no, because it's like, I
that.
mean,
That's a mouth.
yeah, when I went, like, my parents used to, my mom would like, or dad, they both, but like, they would like throw like a big piece of chicken in a Pyrex dish or like a steak and cook it till it was gray and rubbery and then just throw it on the table and it would just be like gone. And like, if you didn't, you might not eat.
Right. Hey, listen, you are preaching to the choir. I tell people all the time on stage that when I was only 5, my mother put me into first grade. I didn't have nursery school or kindergarten. She just put me in first grade. So when I would come home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm 5 years old. I'd fall asleep on the kitchen rug, right? I'd fall asleep right there at the entry of the home. And all my brothers and sisters would step over me and I'd fall asleep. And then at some point, my mom would pick me up and put me on the sofa bed, which was my bedroom. And when I woke up, I would say, "What's for dinner?" And my mom would say, "There is no dinner, honey. You have to go back to school." Like I would sleep all the way through the night. I didn't eat
That's
for
amazing.
3 years. I didn't have dinner. And nobody wanted me to eat anyway, because then they'd have to feed me. In other words,
Yeah.
I was very small.
But it all worked out.
Yeah, look, it all worked out. I know. I gotcha. Hey, we know a lot of the same friends as well that have also been on Storyworthy. Like Mike Sachs recently was on.
I love Mike Sachs, one of my favorite humans.
An amazing talent. And you remind me a
yeah.
little bit about him just in terms of the writing, the writing, I guess, is what
Oh,
it is.
thank you. You're too kind. That's high praise.
And Jordan Morris and
Oh, I
Fetterman.
love Jordan. Yeah, I love all those guys. Hey, Fetterman.
I'm so happy you have been on the show, and I would love to have you on my other show, My Life in 3 Songs.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Most comedians, when I ask to be on My Life in 3 Songs, they can immediately at least tell me one song because music is such a part of our lives. Before we wrap it up, Dave, do you have one song that you might think of? You don't have to stick to it when we actually do My Life in 3 Songs, but what do you think of when I say that?
I probably changed my answer, but the one that always comes to mind is Burnin' for You by Blue Oyster Cult because I think it's like not even close to Blue Oyster Cult's best song. But I do think it's an amazing song in that it kind of it does everything. It's bombastic, it's very catchy, there's sweet guitar.
I'm burning for you.
Yeah, it's like it's so cool and like they're playing like under a bridge and there's fire in the music video.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of and also I jammed with the drummer
Wow.
from Blue Oyster Cult recently and that was an amazing thrill.
Yeah,
and,
Fear the Reaper, that was their biggest, right?
That was probably the biggest, but Burnin' for You is probably like their big MTV hit.
When you think of the album covers from the 70s, it could just bring tears to your eyes laughing when you see the album covers.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much Blue Oyster Cult, but when you think of like Casey and the Sunshine Band or any of those, that period was just hilarious.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It's amazing covers. I mean, I think it's like, yeah, people don't have good covers now. No, there's plenty of good covers, but I think like the process has changed because, people just, I don't know.
It was newer back then.
Yeah.
You have to, because rock and roll comes in about, not Chuck Berry rock and roll, but when you think about the Beatles coming in about 62. So then everything changes and all those album covers are kind of new in a way.
Yeah.
So they're all new to us. And so in a way, they took up a lot of the good ideas.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so now you just rip off other album covers, I think.
That's what people do.
Yeah,
Hey,
I know
listen,
I do.
This has been such a treat. I'm really happy you came on the show, and I'm just thrilled to meet you, Dave. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You guys can check out Dave, of course, online at his website, davehillonline.com. And you can also check out storyworthypodcast.com. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in again. What a blast. Don't forget to check out my Life in 3 Songs exclusively on Spotify. And one more time on behalf of the very talented Dave Hill, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My name is Christine Blackburn, saying make it a story-worthy week.
Thanks for joining us on the Storyworthy Podcast. We'll be back next week with all new stories. Subscribe to Storyworthy on iTunes and visit the Storyworthy website at storyworthypodcast.com.